says, Sean, she's lying to you. You get out of my apartment and don't you ever come in here again. Well, she's not a renter. Why should I be forced to allow her to continue living in my house when she's invading my privacy?
My name is Joe, and this is my story.
Tell me a little bit more about yourself.
Well, I'm retired. I live in New Brunswick. I'm a homeowner, and basically, I have a special needs son that always required a live-in caregiver. I've had live-in nannies pretty much since the day he was born, and the last one I had turned out to be one from hell. I'd used her in the past for babysitting, and what had happened was the government approved us for 4 hours a day funding, which was fine. So anyway, we offered it to this girl that we used as a babysitter. She had just been evicted from her apartment. I now know why. And she also had a daughter. Now, I have a bedroom specifically made for the nanny. When I bought the house, I made sure of that. So I said, listen, you got 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, you got 10 hours each weekend. There's the bedroom that goes with the plan. If you want to move in the bedroom, you can. She's like, well, it's kind of small for both my daughter and I. I said, well, that's all I got. I also have an in-law suite, but at the time, my uncle lived there. He's like my father. He's now passed. But at the time, my uncle was living there. And she said, well, I'll just live in the bedroom until I find my own place. I said, okay, that's fine. So anyway, 2 months later, my uncle moved out. So she said to me, oh, well, how about I move in your in-law suite? And I went, no, I never liked the idea of that. She's like, well, it would be great. You know, I'm here at the house. We have our privacy. You have your privacy, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, fine. But I want to make one thing clear. That is not your apartment. You're not a renter. You're not a tenant. And if the day comes that the arrangement of employment ends, so too does the living arrangement. But I didn't get a contract in writing, but I made it clear to her when she moved in what the deal was. Well, what happened, 2 years later, my father-in-law got dropped off of my front step because he got dementia. His girlfriend said, here, you take care of him. So we ended up moving him into the spare bedroom downstairs that used to be the one for the nanny, and we had to hire a second caregiver for him. But she was live out. She was only here during the day. Of course, we didn't know anything going on because I was at sea and my wife worked full time. So when my wife came home at the end of the day to get a report from Melissa, that was her name, my son's caregiver, she had no reason not to believe her. She only knew what she told her, right? But of course, once we hired Katie, their caregiver for my father-in-law, she was here as well. When she get the report from Katie and then from Melissa, Katie would tell her, she says, Sean, she's lying to you. My wife's name is Sean Marie. She said, she's lying to you. She didn't do any of that stuff. Matter of fact, she let Adam sleep till 3 o'clock this afternoon. So once it all got exposed, I ended up retiring medically and I came home and right away, she's got a guy moved into my in-law suite. Didn't even ask permission, just moved him in and charged him rent to live there. Imagine. So anyway, as soon as I come home, I saw him. I said, what the hell is this? Well, he always lived with me before. I said, he did not live with you when I made this arrangement with you. I said, this is not your apartment. I told you that when you moved in. You can't just move people in. So you got a choice. Either he goes or you both go. Anyway, make a long story short, her behavior got worse and worse as the summer went on. I come in one day and she was standing there yelling at my wife when she's trying to eat her lunch.
What?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
How did this go on for?
Well, she told me it had been going on for 3 years. She was bullying her.
Yeah.
Of course, when I came home, put a stop to it, but here's where the part gets interesting. After giving her warning, she got worse. So I said, okay, Melissa, you obviously did not take my warning to heart. Listen, I don't think you're cut out for this job, Melissa. You don't understand the importance of it. You left him alone several times when you went to town. You left him here. Had he had a seizure, he'd be dead. If a fire broke out, he'd be dead. So you're not cut out for this job. So here's the deal. I'm going to give you 2 months notice to find a place to live. I said, because I'm not happy with your work ethic. I'm telling you that right now. I said, as a matter of fact, if you were not living in my home, I probably would have terminated you a month ago. I understand you have to have time to find a place to live, so therefore I'm giving you 2 months notice. So November 1st is your last day at work and your last day living in my house. The next thing you know, I'm finding a recording device. Like I found it looked like a phone charger plugged into my kitchen island, but it turns out it was a recording device. So I unplugged it and I threw it in the drawer with the other ones. Well, she came right upstairs. Like she knew the second I unplugged it and she went and retrieved it. Well, next thing you know, every time she comes upstairs, she got her phone in her hand and she corners me in the hallway one day and she says, okay, fine. You don't want me working for you after November 1st. Is there any chance I could stay here as a renter? I'll give you $13.50 a month for rent. I said, absolutely not. She goes, why not? I said, because it's not an apartment and you're no longer working for me. There's no longer a reason for you to be here. So the answer is no. Of course, she's recording this conversation. I didn't know it at the time, but now thinking back, she was recording it. But see, I didn't know this. She forged a receipt to say she was paying rent. She was paying board. Every nanny before her paid board. So what happens then, she puts a bungee cord across the door. That's a fire exit. The door that separates my in-law suite. I can take you down and show you it actually. This was a bedroom that I had dedicated for the nanny when I bought it.
Oh, I see. The original one bedroom. Yeah.
Right. Now, here's my in-law suite. Now I want to see, you see that cracked door right here?
Yeah.
That was her kicking the door to break it open.
Wow.
You can still see the mark right here. There's where the bungee cord was. But anyway, here's my in-law suite. That's my son now because we got him living here.
Okay.
So as you can see, 2 bedrooms, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now you get the lowdown. So the only thing that separated the in-law suite from my recreation room
What was this
with
door?
this bedroom door with no lock on it, right? You walk through, you're in my house.
I see.
So you make it a little more understanding. Now, I spoke to a lawyer. He said by her blocking that fire exit, that is a crime in itself. Okay? But here's where it gets interesting. The main heat pump unit for the lower level is in the in-law suite. And I walked in and I went, why is there tape on that? So he took the tape off and I said, Ava, tell your mother not to put tape on the louver. She just broke it. Mom, Joe's in the apartment. So she comes running out like a madman, frothing at the mouth. You get out of my apartment and don't you ever come in here again, blah, blah, blah. I said, listen, I'm going to make this crystal clear for the third time. This is not your fucking apartment. It's my house. Don't come in my apartment again. This is your last warning. The next day, which was a bungee cord place, right? Anytime we weren't downstairs, she would be basically at the bottom of the stairs recording private conversations.
Why?
Yeah, because she's psycho. And when she basically told me she wasn't leaving, I went over to the police station. I said, listen, I need help getting rid of a trespasser out of my home. He goes, that's a civil case. Call a lawyer or call RTT. So I call RTT. So they put me through to this guy and I explained my whole story to him. And he went, do you have a contract in writing stating that? I went, no. He said, that's unfortunate. Because if you had put that in writing, you could have kicked her out 24 hours after the job ended. He said, but because it's not in writing, you got to give her some notice.
Okay.
I said, I gave her notice till November 1st, but she's refusing to work. He said, either way, give her 30 days notice. I said, how do I do that? He said, there's a template on our website, print it off, but instead of saying superintendent, cross it off with live-in caregiver. Print it off, and I dated it September 29th, which was the date I was filling it in. I should have put November 1st for the eviction date. But I also attached the full written notice underneath that I typed off the computer. But she knew the system, so what she does, she takes a picture of the template only, because it was dated wrong, sends it to RTT and says, my landlord's trying to wrongfully evict me, and he dated the template wrong. RTT knew I was ignorant, because I'm not a landlord, I'm a homeowner.
I see.
I've never read it out before.
Okay.
So I asked, what do I do? So I go over to the police station and said, listen, here's the deal. I said, for some stupid reason, you guys don't want to help me get rid of her. Now, I said, she put a bungee cord across a fire exit. She barricaded my fire exit. Well, she's entitled to her privacy. I went, no, she's not, man. She's not a renter. She's a live-in caregiver. Get that through your head. Put a lock on the door and be done with it. So I'm not a complete psycho, so I bought a lock with quarter-inch screws connected solely to the MDF molding. So if you push the door hard enough, it would have popped off. Like, I'm not going to lock her to her death.
Yeah.
As you can see these holes right here?
Yes.
That's where I attached the lock. But as you can see, it's only MDF molding. The screws weren't even all the way through.
Okay.
Right? So anyway, like I said, because I'm not going to lock completely if there's a fire, right?
Right.
I put the lock on it to basically put it there and say.
Where's the exit door?
The main entrance to the in-law suite, you mean?
Yeah.
Right here.
So it's inside. Okay. So technically speaking, that door, the one you were just showing, did not need to be open.
I'm standing behind it. She kicks the door so hard, she hits me in the foot with the door. So I said to her, first off, this is my house. This is my door. If I want to put a lock on it, I'm allowed to. Unlike you, who put a lock on your side. Don't kick my door again. Again, she yells, don't. But of course, she's videotaping the entire ordeal.
Wow.
She's got her phone like this, videotaping it all.
Okay.
Don't lock me in. Kicks the door a second time. Hits me in the foot again. I said, Melissa, I'm telling you right now, don't kick my door again. I said, Adam, hold the lock. So I had my son hold the lock. Don't lock me. And kicks the door the third time, hits him in the hand with it. So now I get pissed. Yeah. So I literally said to her, if you kick my door one more time, I'm going to knock your fucking teeth down your throat. Don't kick my door again.
Okay.
Don't lock me. And kicks the door the fourth time and broke the door. That's where I showed you, because it's not even fixed yet. The door, she broke the door. I stepped in with my fist cocked. I said, I should smoke you for that. She backs away from me with her phone, trips over the dehumidifier and goes, that's assault. I went, whatever, just get the fuck out of my house. I put the lock on the door. I came up and got in the shower.
Okay.
I get out of the shower. There's a cop beating on the main door right there.
Okay. What happened
next?
next?
And I said, what do you want? He said, I need to hear your side of the story. He comes back up and he says, well, you're right. I watched the video. So her assault charge will be very hard to prove. But your charge of property damage will be very easy to prove because we clearly see on the video where she broke the door. I said, then why are we having this conversation? RTT calls me up and they said, we're calling to advise you that your eviction is being overridden because you dated the template wrong. I said, what are you talking about? She said, on the template, you put the eviction date was September 29th. It should have been November 1st. I said, irrelevant. I also gave a full written attached to it. I said, here's the template. Here's the 2-page written notice of eviction I attached to it. Well, we've already ruled, so we can't overrule it now, so you're going to have to give her another 30 days notice. Why should I be forced to allow her to continue living in my house when she's invading my privacy? Fine. So I gave her 30 days notice. So finally, I put it all, I played their game. I jumped through their hoops, put it all forward, but they wouldn't tell me whether or not they're evicting her. Decision yet. I went to my MLA's office, he was the premier at the time. So I went to his office. Now, at the time, it was during the election, so I didn't get to speak to him directly, but I spoke to his assistant, told him everything going on. And he said, Joe, you shouldn't have to put up with that. He said, I'll make a phone call. So he called RTT back and said, your eviction will stand. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Remember how I told you she was recording stuff? She submitted 4 recordings to RTT in order to try to get it overridden. And she reported us to CRA. My wife and I got severely audited for our taxes for the previous 3 years. She tried using that as an excuse. She said, because I reported them to CRA, they're retaliating against me and evicting me as a result. First off, the eviction notice was given to her long before the CRA audit, so that's irrelevant. I said she was evicted when the job ended. So don't even play that shit. The fact that she's now giving you recordings is proof that she's spying on us and conducting eavesdropping, like I've been saying. So I want a copy of those recordings. You know what they said to me? No. They said, we cannot give you those recordings unless she gives us her permission to share them with you.
If you could go back, what would you do differently?
This video is brought to you by our partners at SingleKey. You can screen a tenant perfectly and still get unlucky. People lose jobs, life happens, and no report fully predicts that. That is what SingleKey's rent guarantee is for. If the rent stops, they keep your income coming for up to a whole year, cover the legal fees, and even handle the eviction process. That means one rough year does not cost you $16,000 and 80 hours of your life. A rental is likely one of the biggest investments you'll make in your life, so let's help you take the risk out of renting. Think SingleKey's rent guarantee.
Well, I tell you what I would have done. When she took her daughter to school the next day, I would have had about 6 guys standing by, loaded her stuff in the driveway, covered up, put a change of locks. And you know what? There's not a damn thing they could have done about it. I found that out from a lawyer after the fact. He said RTT is all bark and no bite. He said in your case, you had full justification to kick her out of the house, move her stuff, and change the locks. And RTT could have done nothing. But even worse, the police actually put the charge of assault through. And the reason why, because they said they charged me because I cocked my fist. That was reasonable force. But the interesting part was they didn't say he cocked his fist in the report. They said I shoved her. I used force. What we'll do is we'll charge her with mischief. We'll charge him with assault. We'll offer both of them alternative measures. And then we go, we're done with it.
Okay.
Anyway, I hear nothing from it. A year later, I get a message from the Crown Attorney's office. He said, well, you got to make your choice. You can accept alternative measures, which means you eat the humble pie, you make an apology, you make a charitable donation, and it all goes away, or you take it to court. I said, well, I'm not admitting to something I didn't do, so I'll see you in court. Then I went to the police station and said, I want a full unredacted police report. I'm entitled, since I'm now co-accused, I'm entitled a total disclosure of what she said in that police report. Flat out told me, no.
Interesting.
What we feel is justifiable. The first 5 pages was completely blacked out. I now know why. It was 100% liable slander to get them all in her corner. Now we're going to fast forward ahead until February of this year. She served us and she's suing us now, claiming for wrongful dismissal of her job, wrongful eviction from her self-contained unit inside my home. The interesting thing is Section 12P, where she says, as a result of losing my job, I also lost my self-contained unit inside my employer's home. I went right to the chief of police and said, does that look like a renter to you? He went, no, it doesn't. I said, so why? What are you going to do about it now? She lied on a police report. She falsified she forged a rent receipt. She conducted eavesdrop. She conducted voyeurism. And the icing on the cake, before she finally moved out, she went and bought 2 pet rats and released them into my house. And had 51 offspring.
No.
They threw the water lines on my jet tub, flooded the entire downstairs basement. I had to spend $10,000 in repairs. No charge for the voyeurism. Videotape was sleeping on my bed because they said it wasn't sexual in nature. No charge for the eavesdropping because they said one-sided consent. I said, first off, one-sided consent, she has to be involved in the conversation. First of all. Second of all, that does not apply in a private dwelling where there's an expectation of privacy, especially when you plant recording devices.
So right now you're at a stage where Melissa is taking you to court and it's still active. When is the court hearing?
It'll probably be years down the road. But the part that blows me away the most, RTT sided with her when I told them, I said, she's not a renter. They didn't even want to hear from me.
Yeah.
overrode 2 legal evictions, and nearly overrode a third one. They actually showed up at my door on the 27th of December to make sure I moved my father-in-law in.
Yeah.
Can you
Wow.
believe that?
Okay.
Well, I got a bunch of stuff I'll share with you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Joe. Very nice to meet you. Okay. Give me a high five. Give me a high five. Cheers. See you later. Bye.
My name is Joe, and this is my story.